You know, when you think about the great icons of the 1960s, you've probably got this one image that just pops into your head. The panda black eyes and that towering blonde beehive hairdo. But today, we're going to look right past that famous silhouette, because underneath it all was a hidden architect, a true musical pioneer who didn't just sing songs, she built them. So let's dive into the incredible sonic architecture of Dusty Springfield.
And that quote, it just nails it, doesn't it? Because beneath all that iconic glamour, Dusty Springfield was one of the most sophisticated and, frankly, meticulous musical minds of her generation. She wasn't just a pop star, not even close. She was an architect of sound.
So to really understand that architect, we first have to deconstruct the icon, right? We need to peek behind the curtain, look past the famous persona, and see the artist at work.
You've got to understand this was a complete and total reinvention. Her journey started as Mary O'Brien, singing in this wholesome folk pop group, the Springfields. And yeah, they were popular, but it wasn't her sound. Then, in 1962, she takes a trip to New York City, and everything changes. She hears the song Tell Him by the Exciters, and it just sparks this lifelong obsession with American R&B and soul music. So when she finally went solo, she didn't just change her name, she built a whole new sonic identity from the ground up.
And that brings us to her solo career, where she didn't just find her voice, she literally built a world around it. She was inspired by that famous wall of sound, that dense, layered, almost orchestral approach to pop music, and she took that idea and completely ran with it, making it all her own.
So what was the Dusty Springfield sound? Well, it was this incredible fusion. Her early hits took a very British pop sensibility and mashed it up with this deep, powerful, soulful growl that honestly was pretty much unheard of in the UK back then. She had this amazingly intimate, kind of breathy delivery, but behind it was all this power and absolutely meticulous phrasing. And this really gets to her core philosophy. For her, the microphone wasn't just some tool to make her louder. No. It was a sensitive instrument, and she played it with masterful precision.
And you know that breathy sound? Don't ever mistake that for weakness. It was a total opposite. It was a feat of pure technical genius. As a mezzo-soprano, she needed an incredible amount of breath support and control to project that intimate, vulnerable sound without ever wavering on pitch or losing an ounce of her power. It was a super controlled technique that just made her stand out from everyone else.
But her control went way beyond just her vocals. Here's where it gets really interesting. While the album credits just said vocalist, Dusty was, for all intents and purposes, a producer. This is where we really see the architect at work, and she was notorious for her perfectionism in the studio.
Just let that sink in for a second. She would record dozens, sometimes hundreds of takes just to capture the exact perfect phrasing she was hearing in her head. She'd spend hours at the mixing desk obsessing over where the horns sat in the mix or the specific sound of a backing vocal. This wasn't just singing, it was more like sonic sculpture.
And this quest for the perfect sound led to some pretty legendary moments. There's this one story that just says it all. While she was recording her huge hit, You Don't Have to Say You Love Me, she felt like the studio's echo chambers sounded too fake, too artificial. So what did she do? She moved the entire vocal recording session into a studio stairwell just to capture that specific, haunting, natural reverb that the main room couldn't give her. Now that is dedication.
And all this obsessive perfectionism? It reached its absolute peak in 1968 with the album Dusty in Memphis. She went to work with absolute legends like Jerry Wexler and Tom Dowd, and at first she was so intimidated. You're in a studio haunted by the ghosts of Aretha Franklin and Otis Redding that she was creatively paralyzed. But what came out of those sessions, well, it was a masterpiece.
And you can really see the evolution right here. She completely moved away from that soaring, theatrical melodrama of her London years. In Memphis, her vocal style was all about this grounded restraint. The rhythm wasn't just orchestral pop anymore, it was this complex, gritty Southern soul. You can hear it perfectly on Son of a Preacher Man. Her voice is so intimate, so rhythmic, and just impossibly controlled.
So how did she achieve this new, perfect sound? Well, she basically pioneered a recording method that was way ahead of its time, the punch-in technique. Now, some critics back then mistook this for a lack of confidence, but they were totally missing the point. This wasn't a crutch. It was a tool for an artist who was chasing a very specific musical truth.
Okay, so picture this. Here's how it worked. She'd record a line, listen back, and if a single word, just one word, didn't have the exact right emotion or inflection, she'd rewind the tape and record right over that one single word. She was literally building her vocal performances piece by piece, word by word, until she had constructed the absolute perfect take she heard in her head.
So what's the result of all this meticulous, painstaking work? An enduring legacy. Dusty Springfield didn't just make great records. She created the blueprint for modern vocal production, a blueprint that's still being used today.
Ultimately, it all boils down to this. Dusty Springfield didn't just show up to sing a song. She built entire sonic landscapes from the ground up. Her recordings are this perfect marriage of raw, unfiltered soul and just meticulous, almost scientific, technical precision.
I mean, her contributions are just monumental. She was an uncredited producer and arranger who mastered the recording studio like it was her own instrument. She pioneered vocal techniques that are now standard practice in every studio in the world. She completely redefined what a pop vocal could be and set a gold standard for production that countless artists and producers are still trying to live up to.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. The next time you're listening to a song and you hear a perfectly crafted vocal performance, where every breath, every syllable just hits exactly right, ask yourself this. How many of your favorite songs were built on a blueprint designed, perfected, and gifted to all of us by Dusty Springfield?